Abracadabra was written after Disease. So I knew I had to kind of like up the intensity for there to be another hard-hitting record on the album. Disease became the benchmark, but I knew I wanted it to be the floor, if that makes any sense. Abracadabra was these different sides of me kind of like solidifying on the record this conversation with myself. But the person that is hearing Disease, the song being sung to them, is now like at a party. It's a party that could potentially be really dangerous. It's just total chaos. When we were making this song, I wanted it to feel almost like an opera, like a trance opera. And I wanted to create my own language, which is like something that I've done on some of my other songs, creating hooky moments that are memorable, but would require the fans having to learn what they mean. And I like that because then it's special for the fans. It's like their own language. So The Lady in Red is essentially saying, tonight you could fall in love or it will be the end of your life. What are you going to do? And so the record is ultimately about persevering through a night of mayhem on the dance floor. For me, the creative process starts with listening. I hear music and I have to listen to what I hear in my head. And then it also requires seeing. I have to see the colors as they come together, as the lyrics and the music all take form. And I have to like watch the vision of the colors create this wall. So it's a mixture of like listening and seeing. That's how the creative process starts. GAGA radio. Artist. Dinah Washington is one of my favorite female jazz singers, maybe my favorite. But in mentioning Dinah, I have to also mention Ella Fitzgerald. I've got to mention Sarah Vaughan. It was Dinah Washington's version of What a Difference a Day Makes, which was written by Maria Grever. That record, that's like the bar for me for jazz music. And, Ella's versions of Bewitched, Bothered, Bewildered, Sarah Vaughan's I Can't Give You Anything But Love. These women, just part of my heart, truly a part of my heart. There's kind of like the rock and roll titans that I loved, and then these women in jazz that it's kind of like that combination that makes me me. Mom and I used to listen to Billie all the time when I was a kid, especially doing my homework. That was kind of my first experience with jazz music, was her voice. And then that like led me to Miles Davis, kind of blew into John Coltrane, eventually Giant Steps. It's like the mixture of all of these people that had an influence on my life. There's a classicness and a soulfulness to Billie. With Miles Davis and with John Coltrane, there was this experimental thinking when it came to music. Influential song. Portions for Foxes by Rilo Kiley is a song that I listened to a lot when I was living downtown in New York. And I used to go see Jenny Lewis front Rilo Kiley at festivals. And I'd wear my white boots, which I talked about also. And she used to wear white boots and she had bangs and I had bangs. And I just loved Jenny Lewis. I really wanted to be her. Portions for Foxes was this like incredibly sweet and fun song. She's just a very, very special female artist. Favorite song? Somebody to Love was a song that I sang in a classic cover band that I was in called Mac and Pulsifer. This is when I fell in love with Grace Slick, who I had a picture of by my bed. And she had those long bangs and dark hair. And she had a toughness about her. When the truth is found to be. Favorite song? Oh, Darling by the Beatles. It's one of my favorites. I believe it was actually written by Paul McCartney. When it sounds like John Lennon wrote it, I loved it because it was so nostalgic and it was so retro, even for the Beatles. Oh, darling. Influential women. Tina Turner's voice. I remember hearing Proud Mary when I was a kid and Simply the Best. What's Love Got to Do with It? She was just like a powerhouse and she had an edge to her that was unforgettable. And I think that her energy and her performance style influenced a lot of music. Mary Clayton inspired me so much, and I fell in love with her through the Rolling Stones. She had this voice that was bigger than the moon. And when I sang with Mick Jagger, I thought about her the whole time. She's also just like an incredibly strong person through and through as a vocalist and as someone that like helped define a time in music, because I feel like the Rolling Stones, of course, are amazing in their own right, but like Gimme Shelter is not the same without Mary Clayton. As also like somebody that believed that live music needed to like pass through the air and be recorded. And like, you know, he believed in live music. I think that Prince is one of the most imaginative artists of all time, incredibly influential, also theatrical. His music was sexy and, it, you know, such an interesting artist, everything from, you know, Little Red Corvette, Purple Rain to Sign of the Times and Nothing Compares to You. Different songs, same person. Bruce Springsteen. Bruce, if you're listening, you still are the icon of my childhood, because in a different way from Billy Joel and a different way from Elton John, in Bruce's way, I felt like I got to know who even my dad was, because my dad grew up in Jersey, and the way that Bruce sang about his world and how somehow he was able to like capture the smallness of the immediate world around him and then the globe at the same time, I think is very powerful. I've never heard anyone have that kind of connection also to my life when singing to me. I've heard people have a lot of soul. A lot of artists have a lot of soul, but Bruce, like, he had like a main line into my childhood through my dad. Happiness of love and peace come in with Die with a Smile. It's kind of like this beautiful fantasy of an ending, but the fantasy's real. These two people that have been through this kind of like war together are just really kind of professing to each other that this is where the peace is between us. And obviously I sing this song with the amazing Bruno Mars, but it's very much about my fiance, and it has this nostalgic quality to it, and it's a very, very powerful moment. And then the mayhem is over. GAGA Radio. Shallow. Shallow is one of my favorite songs that I've ever written. We wrote that at Dragonfly, and it was Andrew Wyatt, Anthony Rosamondo, and Mark Ronson. You know, we were working on Music for a Star is Born, that lyric, Ain't It Hard Keeping It So Hardcore, and Tell Me Something Girl, Are You Happy in This Modern World? It was one of the first times that I wrote in a conversation like that between a man and a woman, and I hadn't made a record like that before. It was about like two artists basically that were reflecting on the world with each other. I wanted to create something that gave you that feeling that the artists, you know, Ally and Jackson from Star Is Born, that they had something to say. 'Cause to me, that's what grounds a great artist, is somebody that has something to say. And I wanted them both to feel like two people that you wanted to hear their music. So they're having this like big conversation. The Fame Monster. Bad Romance was written on the tour bus. During tour, Red One was traveling with me. We were listening to industrial music, and we made that record. And I loved that record so much after I wrote it. I listened to it so many times. And it's so funny. I thought Alejandro should be the single for that album, but it was Bad Romance, and I'm glad that we did that. GAGA Radio. The Fame. Poker Face, I wrote with Red One, and we wrote this song in a day. I think it probably took us like maybe 15 minutes, even with the track. I mean, it was quick programming and writing, and it was just like an instant. We just knew that we had done something special. And really, I was like very inspired by Timbaland at the time. I remember, I want to say that Timbaland said to me, like, I can hear that you are inspired by me. And I took that as a major compliment. Thank you. This is when like some of my like more twisted lyrics started to take form. And this is when I started experimenting with Euro Dance more and Four on the Floor. And then Telephone I did that record with Rodney Jerkins, and it was so funny because me and Rodney, we like had a difference in opinion of how the bass should sound in that record. And looking back on it, it's really funny to me that I was so bossy in the studio with Rodney Jerkins. But I really wanted also like big synths on that record. And so like we did work well together, and we made something I think that didn't sound like anything that was on the radio. And I remember I called Beyonce and I asked her to do that song with me. So excited when she said yes. And we did the trade. We did the telephone, video phone trade. Chromatica. Okay, so Rain on Me was the second single from Chromatica featuring Ariana Grande. Love you, girl, so much. And that song is like, to this day, it's one of my favorite lyrics I think I've ever written. I'd rather be dry, but at least I'm alive. It's like acknowledging that life is pouring, but you're still going, and you're going to keep going. Like that you can dance through all the tears that feel like rain. So I hope you dance to this. GAGA Radio. Chromatica. Stupid Love is a very kind of song about proclaiming probably the most important thing to me in the world, which is love. Love to me it's also the thing that makes me stupid, because I'll do anything for love. You're the one that I've been waiting for. I gotta quit this crying. Nobody's gonna heal me if I don't open the door. It was like me sort of musing to myself everything I was gonna have to do to make my life better. So that I had to heal myself first so that I could find the love I was looking for. The Edge of Glory was inspired by my grandfather, and it has like my favorite sax solo on it of my career. And we got Clarence Clemens from the E Street Band, Bruce Springsteen's band, to play on it. And Clarence actually heard and saw the video the day that he passed away. And I miss him to this day. He was one of the greatest musicians that ever lived, and hugely influential on my life, because my dad loved Bruce Springsteen and I listened to the E Street Band my whole childhood. So having him on that song and knowing him, and he was in the video too, knowing him was so special to me. I wrote You and I on a paper napkin in a bar in New York, and I sent it to Mutt Lange and I asked him to produce it. I was a fan of his work with many artists, and he took a sample from Queen, and we called Brian May, and Brian May played on the record. That's one of my favorites too, because people that love that song never know that it's my song. They think it's somebody else. I don't know who they think it is, but they never know it's me.